Hello, how you doing today? Where's the buff? So that's a great question. So let's go ahead and dive into it. I have the video saved, I think. Or at least I thought I did. So I was thinking last day, I'm like, okay, great. Garen's getting buffed, but what exactly are they planning on buffing? And usually they don't post this information until later today. However, what Freak has been doing is he's been just doing patch previews. So what I would like to do is I want to go and pull that up because he actually talks about that. So we're going to go ahead and skip to the part of the video where he talks about Garen. And let's go ahead and talk about what he talks about.
Next, there are some buffs to Garen. I also did the Garen changes here. So the point here is somewhat twofold. So I think Garen should be pretty normal skewed. He is a very easy to play champion. There was a kit update a while ago that added a lot of skill expression with a very tight timing test on his W, which we know is skill expressive. I'm not saying that was wrong. It clearly hit the goals, but I think for Garen being a fun champion for the most players possible, I think Garen should be an easier to play champion and return even more of his low MMR skew. So I want to make Garen a little bit easier to play. On average, not by a huge amount, but just nudge him a little, right? Still keep his skill expression, but just nudge him a little bit, another 5% over or something. Okay. The other thing is part of what even has any normal skew for or low elo skew for Garen at all.
I wonder what keystone he must be talking about. What type of keystone makes Garen a scaling
points in time? So I actually want to bring up Garen's early game, but I know by bringing up Garen's early game that is innately elite skewed. Darius, for example, is an elite skewed top laner because he is a lane bully. His win rate is higher in high MR than low MR. I know Darius has the long-term reputation of being a noob stomper, but he actually does better in Masters than in Silver. He wins a large percentage of his games in Masters than in Silver.
That's actually really interesting. I did not know that. But then again, I guess I haven't been paying attention to the numbers. I do think that Darius has historically always been that low elo noob stomper. But the thing is, I guess it makes sense. Darius has 2 skill shots with hitboxes, but the thing is, Darius is a very punishable champion if you just go ahead and just whiff your E and you don't have any intent on actually following up with it. And then on top of that too, there's a lot of low elo players who just do not have good summoner spell management, and I know this because I've seen games, I've coached clients. Yeah, Garen players obviously struggle with this too, but when it comes to using summoner spells, there are so many low elo players. Any Juggernaut, this can apply to any Juggernaut, that see a play and their first thought without going through any type of criteria or consideration as to whether or not they should or can use a summoner spell, they will automatically just do it because it's available, right? They just go ahead and shotgun that thing. And I think Darius players with really bad summoner spell management just suffer so badly. So I think that's one of the reasons why I think Darius players do worse in low elo compared to high elo, because summoner spell management is more disciplined, and also Darius players are better at managing their cooldowns, and they also know aspects of laning phase that are better for punishing. For example, a Darius player in Silver, and I've witnessed this in my coaching client games, Darius players in Silver never freeze. They just go ahead and push. They push, they push, they push, they push, they push, and they expect to get value out of their laning phase when their opponent's sitting under tower, and they're like, okay, what's the worst that Darius can do? EQ? And take 2 tower shots? Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. They should keep doing it until Garen hits level 6 and then gets blown up by a flash QR. So, yeah, on top of that too, wave management, in order to be good at Darius, you have to understand wave management really well, because you could say freezing as easy as pi on Darius, but there's so many people who just don't even discipline themselves to even freeze in the first place. It's crazy. So I actually understand this. It's actually quite a moment for me, because I didn't think about this before.
Despite, again, all the thoughts around him, early game champs tend to be elite skew. This is just how it works. So, and then there's a third thing I'm thinking about, which is I would rather Garen tend to run Conqueror than Phase Rush. I think Garen is a healthier champion all around when he doesn't guarantee that he runs at Mach 3 and is immune to slows and is thus guaranteed to land his full E and then kill you. I keep saying guarantee, ha ha ha. Regardless, Phase Rush feels like it removes all of the gameplay from Garen's combo. It's, did he catch you from brush? Okay, you're just dead.
Well, okay, so yes, I mean, I guess that's always going to be part of Garen's playstyle, no matter what you say. So I'm not here to, like, the hard criticize Freak's logic, but I think I can understand it. What he's trying to say, essentially, I don't think he phrased this the best, but what he's trying to say is that Garen's core gameplay pattern is often, like, Garen uses his Q and E and Strikebreaker sometimes to not take fights, but just to get away from fights. And I think that's what Riot Games doesn't like. Garen and Juggernauts are always viewed by Riot Games as a healthy champion class that, if considered healthy, should always elect to take fights and to brawl and skirmish and team fight and to get into the thick of things. But the Phase Rush playstyle allows Garen to act much differently. He could just go ahead and side lane and just zoom away with Ghost Flash Phase Rush. He can go into team fights, proc Phase Rush with using E or to like a Q stride auto, and then just go ahead and zoom to another champion and then proceed to full combo blow them up. So I think that's why I think Riot Games hasn't been the happiest with Garen, because it's mainly Phase Rush. It's the vast majority of his pick rate historically. And it does flatten a lot of his weaknesses too, which is something I mentioned earlier on the stream. But yeah, I mean, again, this trickles down to the whole topic of, are some runes too powerful in removing weaknesses? But I'm not even going to get into that because it's a very, very like potentially heated subject with a lot of viewpoints. But yeah, essentially they love Conqueror Garen. That's what they tried iterating when they tried reworking Garen. It looks like they're trying to take another shot at it. Are they going to be successful? Especially, you know, since FYI guys, they're making Tiamat a component of Strikebreaker, which now essentially means we get Iron Spike Web back, essentially. Are they going to be successful with it? I don't know, but let's hear the rest of Freak's reasoning.
So all those things led me to these two changes. The attack damage ratio is up on Garen E, ranks 1 through 4. This is not a very big change, but it is mathematically somewhere between 10 and 2% more E damage. Levels 1 through 8, which is not trivial. It's a decent amount of extra damage. Makes him better in lane, right? Brings up his early game a little bit. Lets him fight you a little bit better. Okay, great. And also because more of his damage is in the AD ratio, he makes him care more about Conqueror, right? That rune is going to do more heavy lifting for him because the bonus AD is going to mean more to then go win his lane and go be a bit better lane bully. The other change is flattening the W duration to where it's a buff until champion level 7.
I don't know exactly what he means by that. It's really hard to visualize this without numbers, but he meant flatten the duration. So I'm assuming he's doing something with the damage reduction aura, because right now I think Garen gets, what, 4 seconds of damage reduction? Or 5? It used to be 6, I remember that. But I think they took a second off of it. Yeah, it's 4-second duration. So what I'm led to believe is that they're going to go ahead and maybe open up Garen's tenacity window. I'm calling it right now. Here's what they're probably going to do. They're gonna add 2.5 seconds onto it, which makes it a 1 second window to land W, which is gonna make Garen easier to play. And then they're also gonna take a second off his damage reduction ratio for 3, like maybe push it down to 3 seconds. I'm calling it right now. I have a feeling that that's gonna be what they're gonna take a shot at numerically. But you know, this is my personal theory. Let me know, guys, in chat or in the comments what you guys think is going to happen. Well, I guess we're gonna find out later today, so we won't have to be held in suspense too long. But I'm actually really curious to see if I'm calling this right.
So very clearly a buff to Garen, but essentially, Garen has a very short duration shield and short duration tenacity when you press W. And that is tagged with a moderate to long duration damage reduction, but that damage reduction duration scales with rank from 2 to 5 seconds, and this is making it 4 seconds, so that duration is learnable for both you and your opponent. I'm generally not a big fan of duration scaling, where knowing the duration really matters. Like, I'm really not a fan of giving like shields or things like DR duration scaling, because there's already 160 plus champions in the game, and they all have 5 skills. In some cases, they have 10. Learning them all is a lot, especially when you're meant to be a champion you're going to see in low elo, like Garen.
That makes sense.
Even more, I don't want to say obnoxious, but like, I value the consistency quite a bit there. I'd rather have something else scale. So is this going to be 2% of win rate that Garen needs? I'm not 100% certain. to be honest. We are buffing a core item of his in Stridebreaker, which will also do something. But, you know, he needs some help. If we have to do larger work in 0.3 or 0.4,
so
we will, but that's the
notice how he said 2%. I think Freak said that pretty intentionally, because I've paid attention to what Riot Games does, and I know exactly their pattern of thought and how they move with numbers. So let's go ahead and move to our friends at u.gg, and let's go ahead and see what the heck is going on with Garen right now, presently. So to start off the patch, Garen was in a really shaky place. He was actually as low as, I believe, 46%. People screenshotted and referenced with the launch of 14.1. Now that we're on a micro patch and they buffed Stridebreaker, people are starting to figure out Garen a little bit more. People are getting their bearings. It's a little bit better. But now, Garen is still stuck at 48% win rate in silver. And, like, I don't even want to look at other MMRs because, like, this is the biggest chunk of the equation. So we're going to focus on this, okay? Historically, season after season, Riot Games cares about Garen being an easy-to-pick-up champion that can punish other players, especially players who don't know their own champions or are just not confident in their own playstyles. That's basically the Garen fantasy. They believe that Garen is technically balanced in silver, around 51 to 33% win rate, because since Garen is so reliable, right, and he doesn't have the highest skill ceiling, he's therefore deemed as easy to pick up. And I'm basically paraphrasing what Freak said because he expressed his own philosophy on it, which lines up as to what I thought was always their philosophy, but now is confirmed with Freak's language. But last time Garen got buffed, you guys can look up the patch video if you guys want to see his paraphrase, or his own words on it. However, if we're in an equation where Garen is locked in and people know how to play Garen, and that Garen player plays versus somebody who's practicing their champion, the Garen player technically should have an advantage in lane versus that champion, unless that champion is just a giga hard counter. Like, for example, a Garen player in silver who has 10 games of Garen may struggle versus somebody who plays first time Quinn if they actually read the tooltips as to what Quinn abilities do and realize, oh, I can vault before Garen lands Q. Not every Quinn player is going to realize that, but first time Quinn players actually might realize that and pose a threat to Garen. But if you're playing first time Malphite versus Garen, yeah, the Garen player is probably going to go ahead and mess you up 100%, because the Malphite player is probably not going to know what the max. They are going to try using Q on minions instead of actually throwing Q after Q on Garen, and they actually might have a hard time landing ultimate. I've got no idea. So it's because of that we always can expect Garen to have a high win rate in silver, because this is where the vast majority of player base is. And as a result, if Garen's win rate is in the negative, that is pretty telling. This is where most League of Legends matches take place, because the vast majority of the player base, as I said before, is in silver. So when we see Garen below 50% win rate, that means Garen's actually struggling. The proof is in the numbers here. This is paraphrased from Riot's core philosophy on Garen. But in Riot's definition, if Garen is below 50% win rate in silver, that means he needs buffs. And this happens every single season without a doubt or question. I have witnessed this multiple times. Every single Garen buff can always be indicated by looking at this page and looking at this stat. If you ever see Garen's win rate below 50% in silver, well, guess what, guys? Don't even need to call the weather center, because guess what? Garen buffs are coming next patch or the next patch after. Just takes Riot some time to decide what he's getting. And it's just interesting. You know, I wanted to wrap up the video here, but I feel like this is just going to keep happening, because I see League of Legends evolving, and I see where League of Legends is heading to, and I see the champions being added to this game with paragraphs of descriptions on their abilities, and how that's pushing the mobility creep of this game out of control. It's not just Garen. Darius is getting buffed too. Juggernauts are struggling to keep up with the game. 5 years from now, I expect there to be maybe 3 to 4 Garen buffs in between that time period and what we're talking about presently today. They're going to keep buffing Juggernauts, because unless they rework all these Juggernauts to include more mobility, which I don't think will ever happen because they want to keep it as a core weakness, they need to keep them stronger in what they do to be able to keep up with the game, because that element of counterplay where you have like half of the champions being released being able to jump over walls at 2 screens away and to be able to kite out these Juggernauts, as soon as like the community solves these champions more, the counterplay of Juggernauts go up and their win rates go down. So in order for Garen and other Juggernauts to keep up with the game, like Garen, Darius, I'm pretty sure Set's going to get another buff sometime in the future. Any Juggernaut, Mordekaiser even, they're just going to keep getting buffed. Like, this happens to Nasus too. So, like, I'm just saying, guys, expect a Garen buff next year. Expect a Garen buff the year after this one. It's going to be very rare that Garen ever gets nerfed ever again, unless they screw up some sort of item or systemic change that pushes him over the edge. And they'll just go ahead and like dial back a bit, which is what they've done in the past. But yeah, this is why I'm never afraid of Garen ever getting gutted, because like witnessing the history of things and witnessing these buffs, like Garen already struggles to keep up with the game as is. You know, it's one thing if you could punish newer players, but just like the game is starting to like go down a slippery slope of like more and more and more and more. And when you have simple champions in the game, like how can you keep up with this? How can champions like Garen ever keep up? So that's all I wanted to say about that. What do you guys think of the Garen buffs in the comments below? What do you guys think about Riot's balancing philosophy on Garen? Please let me know in the comments. It's an interesting discussion, and I'd like to hear you guys, chime in a little bit more as to what you guys think is the right way to balance Garen, or the game in general. You know, do you guys think the bloody creep is coming out of control, or has been out of control to the point where Juggernauts need to be buffed every year? I don't know, but you let me know. All right, thanks everybody so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next Super Duper Demacia, baby. Thanks for watching.